Amina, how would you define motherhood? I mean, what does it mean to you?
Well, I mean, motherhood is a blessing. And I think it's one of the most fulfilling roles that you can do. I think until you have children, I don't think, it's always me, myself and I think. Even when you're married, but you still have very sort of individual needs to a large extent. But motherhood, I think, really opens you up as a person. And that the joy that a child brings is just like second to none. So for me, that is my ultimate, I think, defines me as a person and a reason for living. Because I think until you have children, you never really get to that point where you can live for somebody else.
Your needs are quite selfish.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right.
And I think it is definitely the one defining area of your life where your love is unconditional. Truly unconditional, because you love your children no matter what.
Yeah. True.
It's not to say you won't have disappointments or other issues, but you will still always love them unconditionally. You could give your life for them. With other people you may think twice. Even people you love very much, like your husband, but with your children, without even thinking, eyes closed, tell me where to jump.
Sure. Well, mothers these days have got a lot on their plates. They feel, they struggle with mommy guilt issues. They try to be super moms and they neglect their well-being. Do you ever feel mommy guilt?
I think every mother feels guilt to a certain extent. So I think, that's a natural process, just because you always want to be there for your child. But I think it's important to also look at the broader picture and to say, you have roles and other things you need to do in life. And I think it's also very healthy and sets a good role model for children, for them to see you do other things and fulfill them, because you also want them to grow up and be independent. And that helps that process too. So if they're not feeling well and you're at work, you feel like I'd rather be at home with my child, but you have responsibilities and it's not always easy to drop them. But obviously if the need is there, you will be there. But I think there are times where you need to push yourself and go beyond the guilt, that natural feeling to say, actually, it's okay. And
it's
for
okay
me to be,
yourself.
and sometimes it's okay to take time out for yourself, because for me to be a better mother and a happier mother, where I feel fulfilled, my children will be fulfilled through the way I'm feeling. So, I think, and I'm a really great believer in that, is that in a household, I think the mother plays such a key role, not just because they're raising the children, but she controls the atmosphere in the house. And I know that because my husband teases me about it all the time. So if I'm in a bad mood, it feels like everything just drops down, So it's important for you to take care of yourself, because you're taking care of everybody else.
Everybody else who depends on you.
And I know my husband always says that when you're happy or you're joyful, the whole house lights up, and and I think so it's important to take care of your well-being too.
Can you think of any particular moment where you felt that mommy guilt, and how did you deal with it?
I think the first time is like when I decided to go back to work. I wasn't always intending to, like when I took my maternity leave with my first child, I actually did leave work, because I work as a lawyer and part-time roles are really difficult to come by. And the firm that I was at wasn't able to offer me a part-time position. So I was like, that's fine, I don't need it. And I sort of consciously during my maternity leave made the decision to leave work. But obviously as time goes on, opportunities come your way. So I think that first time leaving him at nursery, that was very difficult, because you do feel guilty. But then in my mind, I sort of tried to tell myself, well, actually, I'm only working 3 days a week. We're only putting him in nursery 2 days a week, and we're trying to juggle the third day by me and my husband working from home. So, you try and find ways where you can balance that guilt. But I think that one was probably the first time. The second time, I think, is when my husband and I went away for a long weekend. And that because we were doing something for ourselves. With work, I think you kind of consciously say,
No, I'm
you're
doing it for
working,
them.
you're contributing, you're doing
Yeah.
it for them. Going away on a holiday is clearly for yourself and for your husband, but I think it's also very important to take time out for your relationship with your husband, because they do get neglected. You know, it's the same old cliche, the same old story, but they do. And, you know, it is just as important to work on your relationship. But I did feel really guilty leaving my son. I mean, he was about 18 months, and my sister, you know, took care of him, did a fantastic job. I don't think it even clicked until we walked back in the house for him, because he was having so much fun with his cousin and, you know, my sister. And it's only, I think, the penny dropped when we walked in, and I think, you know, you could see that look in his face, like, oh, where have you been? But for me, during the trip, you know, I was calling. My sister says a bit too much to check up. So it's just that, I think, that feeling that should I have left him, or should he have been with us?
You mentioned juggling.
Yeah.
Now, you're a barrister with 2 children, with a very hectic job. How do you juggle it all?
I think you just have to be organised.
Yeah. What's your daily routine like?
It's really hard. So now I think I'm fortunate that I sort of work part-time, but that said, a part-time role for a lawyer is very different to a normal. It's not like I can switch off 9 to 5, you know. I work for a US international company. I have clients all over the world, so my time zone, I could get hit any time. But I think it's having the mindset that you're prepared to be flexible. You're prepared to get on a conference call while you're making dinner, and not try and get too flustered by that. And obviously I try to instill in my children that, you know, I have to work, and sometimes I have to work like this. And as they've grown older, they've gotten used to it. Took my daughter a little bit of time.
It's about making your children understand.
Yeah, but now they'll mimic me, and they'll say, "Oh, Mummy's on a conference call," or when they're pretending to be me, they'll pretend to be on a conference call and things like that. So I think, you know, children can understand. They do learn, and, you know, you explain work, and I think with my son, it helps that, you know, he goes to a school and he has homework. So I try to give him those analogies that, you know, you have to work here and I have to work there, and you know, you try to make them understand, and they are very understanding.
Yeah.
And it helps to have a husband who helps me as well. So we try and, you know, divide up what we can do, whether it's pick up or drop off, picking up the kids, trying to get meals done maybe in advance on days where I know I'm probably going to be at work, or relying on takeouts and things like that. So it's a juggling act.
And it's about flexibility.
But it's about flexibility, and it's about being prepared to be flexible. I think if you have, I'm not one of those person where everything has to be done in a certain way. I'm pretty adaptable, and I can go with the flow. But I think if you're one of those person that you know, like your routine and something goes out of kink, then it's hard. Whereas, you know, I just tend to go with the flow. My kids go with the flow. My husband goes with the flow. So I think that really helps. And it's the only way it works. Like I said I work, you know, part-time, but I will take conference calls or, you know, join meetings on days where I'm not, because that's the way it will work. And I have to make my obviously part-time job work too, and that's the only way it works, because clients need the advice when they need it.
But did you have it figured out from day one, or you know, was motherhood different in early years?
I think I had my children, you know, sort of quite, I would say it's quite later on in life, I guess. So not in my early 20s. And I think that helped, because by the time I became a mother, career-wise, I had achieved a lot. I mean, you know, I'd become senior associate at my firm. And I wasn't really, I'd always in my mind, even though my husband disagrees with me, in my mind I'd always thought I didn't want to go for partnership, because I knew that would be a real struggle to balance motherhood when I wanted to become a mother with, you know, being a partner in a law firm. So I never aspired to go down that track. So in my mind, I was like, career-wise, these are the kind of cases I want to do. This is the kind of level of responsibility I want. And I had achieved that by the time I became a mother. So in my mind, if I hadn't gone back to work, it wouldn't have been the end of the world to me. Whereas if I had my children in my early 20s as I was starting out, there were clearly career-wise, there would have been a lot of milestone I wanted to reach, and I think I would have struggled a lot more to do that. And it wouldn't have been possible to reach those milestones in a part-time type of working environment.
Yeah.
So I would have had to make a lot more sacrifices. So I think in that sense, I did balance it a lot more. I don't know whether that happened by thought or by design. But
it
know,
worked out that
it all
way.
worked out.
Yeah. Okay. Well, what do you do? Can you share some tips about how do you take care of yourself with the busy lifestyle that you lead? How do you actually take care of your own personal well-being?
Yeah, well, I think now, or at least very recently, I don't know how good I was about it before, but now I do try to take time out, go to the gym. You know, I think, you know, my husband and I are just like thinking health has to be at the top of our priority. You know, we have to be fit. It's not just about looking good, but it's also about being fit and healthy. Because, you know, we want to be there for our great-great-grandchildren. Forget about grandchildren. And so I would now sort of work there. I plan that into the days where I'm not required to be at work. So after drop off. And I find, you know, getting it out of the way first thing in the morning always helps. And my husband was the one that instilled that in me. Because he was like, get out of the way in the morning, then you don't need to think about it. And he's absolutely right. Because any time where I thought, oh, I'll go after lunch or, you know,
or
in the afternoon.
Yeah.
It never works because something or another will always pop up what you have to do. So if you try and tick that off your list first thing in the morning, I think that really works.
It becomes easy.
Yeah. And I think you need to prioritise that. So it has to just become like routine, almost like going to work. I mean, I actually don't enjoy going to the gym. I'm not one of those gym bunny type person. For me, it is a chore and it feels like a chore. So, you know, you have to have it like, you know, tick it off your list, like going to work. You know, it's just one of those things that's compulsory.
I think, would you say mothers these days, they don't prioritize their well-being? Well, it doesn't come up anywhere on the list.
I think in your checklist, you do tend to prioritize everything else. So if, for example, only one of us could go to the gym, I would tell Mush, I'll tell my husband, okay, you go, I'll stay at home, or I'll look after the kids. You tend to prioritize, I'll do something else for somebody else first before you. So I think that's very easily done. And I think even in my own mind, I'm sort of, in terms of, if
we have to make a conscious effort.
You have to make a conscious effort to say, well, you know, your health matters as well.
What tips could you give to mothers who find it hard to keep guilt at bay? What would you say to them?
I would say to look at the things that are making you feel guilty, whether it's going to work or going on holiday without your children, and see what benefit that gives you and how it benefits your family as a whole. So going to work, obviously, you know, you get a salary, you're financially providing for your children. They're able to get things that, you know, if you were just on one salary, maybe you wouldn't be able to afford. So you are contributing, you know, to their well-being. And so that hopefully should make you less guilty. And also, I think it's important to think, how would you like your children to view you? In terms of a role model. So if you want them to become independent, you want them to become professional working people, they need to identify with that in some way. So it's not a bad thing if you can set that example. But I think things that you do for yourself ultimately does contribute to the well-being of your family. And that's what you need to remember. Because if you think, oh, if I was unwell, how would it affect my family? It'll be a lot worse. So I think that would help you try and balance that feeling of guilt. And I think, you know, we call it guilt, but it's just, I try not to think of it as guilt. I try to put a positive spin on things. So I try to view it as, you know, just a desire to spend more time with your family. Because when you look at it positively, so when you say guilt, it's almost like you're trying to tell yourself, it's negative, and you're trying to tell yourself that you're doing something wrong, whereas you're not doing something wrong. Because there are so many ways you're doing something wrong, otherwise you wouldn't be doing it. If you think you're doing something wrong, you wouldn't be doing it. So it's just, what it is when you're away from your children, it's your desire to be with them. And just see it in a positive way. But then think of ways where you are making up for that lost time that you think. So I think it's also a question of quality over quantity.
Yeah.
So it's not like spending 10 hours a day, but you know, when you are with them, are you playing with them? Are you engaging them? Are you spending time with them? You know, it's not just being in the same house as them. Whereas I know, I mean, I know on days where I am at home, like I said, because I work part-time, I'm not with my child 24/7. I'm getting on with chores. I'm doing other things. And that's what you do at work. So just because you're in the same room as them or in the same house as them doesn't make it, you know, any less different when you're at work. You know, it's about the time you spend with them. So I think that sort of helps with that feeling.
What would you say to, say, mothers, stay-at-home mothers, who might think that they get to spend more quality time with their children than mothers who work, especially for school-going children who, you know, who've got a lot on their plate with from homework to school clubs and activities? What would you say? How can you balance it all?
How can a stay-at-home mom?
Yeah. As a working mom, how do you balance it all? How can you say yes? You spend quality time with your children and look after your career as well?
I think, I mean, I'm quite fortunate because I am working part-time, so and I can work flexibly, so I also have the opportunity to work at home. So I can do pick-ups, I can do drop-off, I do homework with them. So I am involved in all the key things that they need to do. But that's not to say, like, when my husband and I are both working or, you know, we're away, we don't rely on after-school care and things like that. But for the majority of the time, we are there and we're very hands-on with our children. And, you know, we balance that.
Yeah. You've learned to prioritise.
We've learned to prioritise, yeah. And clearly, obviously, the children's need do come first, but they are balanced with your work because we're professionals. We can't just drop a case. We can't just not get on a call and speak to a client. So, you know, it has to be sort of balanced. So, you know, when you need to be at work, you're at work. But, you know, you take time out. I still go to the school plays. Even if it falls on a, you know, working day, I will go into work later and maybe work later on. It's about being flexible. And I think now that hopefully employers will become more understanding as time goes on. I'm very lucky I have understanding employers where we do. It's because we work with international clients, so we have to be flexible. You know, sometimes, you know, we're on calls late in the evening because, you know, we're dealing with, you know, California who are 8 hours behind. So when you give them that flexibility, they give you that flexibility back. So I juggle it by just juggling around my priorities and thinking about it in advance. So what do I need to do? How does that impact on my day?
Yeah.
How can I fit that in? And it's a lot about organising that.
So would you say balancing your life would be through prioritization?
Yeah, and organisation. Yeah.
Okay.
So, you know, you have to, I mean, there are some things you can't always do. So you have to say, what is that really important? Look, not every school play is going to be important, but the key ones will be. You know, not every meeting you have to attend, but as long as one parent is there, I think that's important. So I think the way Mush and I sometimes do it, if we're both unable to attend something, is at least one parent is there. And I think that helps.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Because a lot of parents feel the need to be there for every single event, even if it's a cake bake sale.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. So I would pass on cake bake sales, but I would go to a school play. Or something what I know that my son is either participating in. I would definitely make more of an effort to try and prioritise that if I'm able to. I do also, I mean, obviously sometimes, you know, one or either of us has to miss it. We try not to both miss it at the same time. But we do try to explain that sometimes we're unable to because work commitment means we have to be somewhere else. So we do try and explain that to him. But I have noticed that he does prefer me to be at things. If Dad misses it, he's less concerned about it than if Mum misses it.
Yeah.
So.
But that's always the case, isn't it? Kids
I don't know why, but I remember him saying that I missed his Christmas play because I'd just given birth to my daughter. And I still tried to explain to him that, you know, that's because I just had Iman.